In the conventional world, power is often viewed as a pyramid where the person at the top sits on the shoulders of everyone else. However, the Hebrew concept of leadership, as demonstrated by the life of Jesus, flips this pyramid upside down. The servant king model suggests that true authority is not derived from the ability to suppress those below you, but from the capacity to support and elevate them. In Mark 10, Jesus presents a radical survival strategy for leaders. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. This is not a soft, sentimental idea, it is a dimensional strike against traditional management. When a leader acts as a servant, they remove the friction of resentment and ego that usually slows down a team. By focusing on clearing obstacles for their people rather than demanding service for themselves, they build a foundation of loyalty that no amount of top-down force can replicate. A servant king doesn't just hold power, they empower the entire structure, making the organization far more resilient and responsive to change. One of the greatest threats to any leader is the information cocoon, a state where you are surrounded only by people who tell you what you want to hear. The book of Proverbs provides a direct antidote to this in chapter 15:22. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. The ancient Hebrew logic suggests that wisdom is not a solo pursuit, it is a collective effort. Building a counselor's circle requires the intentional gathering of people who have the courage to tell the truth, especially when that truth is uncomfortable. This is the wisdom of many minds. It recognizes that every individual has blind spots, and a leader who acts alone is essentially walking through a minefield with their eyes closed. By inviting diverse perspectives and encouraging honest dissent, a leader ensures that their decisions are stress-tested before they are implemented. This collective intelligence serves as a safety net, allowing the leader to rest in the knowledge that their path has been vetted by the sharpest minds available, preventing catastrophic errors born of isolation. In many modern organizations, there is a tendency to value harmony above all else. Leaders often avoid difficult conversations or ignore bad behavior just to keep the peace. However, ancient Hebrew wisdom teaches that a peace built on a lie is not peace at all. It is a countdown to a collapse. The book of Proverbs repeatedly warns that he who rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than he who flatters with the tongue. True leadership requires the courage to prioritize justice over temporary comfort. When a leader fails to correct a mistake or address an injustice to keep the team happy, they are actually sending a message that excellence and ethics are optional. This creates a culture of resentment among the high performers and a sense of entitlement among the underperformers. By having the courage to correct, a leader establishes a long-term system of fairness. It shows the community that there is a standard higher than anyone's feelings. While the conflict may be painful in the short term, it builds a foundation of genuine trust, where everyone knows that the rules apply to all, and that the organization's moral compass is functioning correctly. In the ancient world, a vineyard without a wall was not a vineyard for long, it would be trampled by animals or stripped by thieves. The Hebrew law was obsessed with boundaries, specifically the removal of a neighbor's landmark or boundary stone, which was considered a severe offense in Deuteronomy chapter 19. This wasn't just about land, it was about the fundamental logic of ownership and responsibility. In a leadership context, the law of the vineyard is about setting clear boundaries for roles, responsibilities, and behaviors. Internal friction and office politics almost always occur when boundaries are blurry. When people don't know where their authority ends and someone else's begins, they either overstep or hesitate, both of which cause massive energy loss. By establishing firm walls around what is expected of each person, a leader reduces the need for constant supervision. Boundaries actually provide freedom. When an employee knows exactly where the fence is, they can run at full speed within that space without fear of stepping on someone else's toes. This clarity eliminates the internal noise and allows the entire organization to focus its energy on growth rather than on resolving territory disputes. The Moses model describes the moment a leader reaches the limit of their personal capacity. In Exodus chapter 18, Moses was attempting to judge every dispute for an entire nation alone, leading to total exhaustion for both himself and the people. The solution offered by his father-in-law Jethro remains the gold standard for scaling any organization: find capable, trustworthy people and give them real authority. The genius of this model lies in the selection criteria. It wasn't just about skill, it was about character. They looked for people who were capable, feared God, were trustworthy, and hated dishonest gain. When you delegate based on these 4 pillars, you aren't just offloading tasks, you are delegating trust. In a high-pressure environment, a leader's greatest weakness is the desire to control every detail. By finding honest people who hate greed, you create a decentralized network of leadership. This allows the organization to achieve scalable growth because the leader is no longer a bottleneck. Instead of a single point of failure, you have a resilient system where the small issues are handled locally, leaving the leader free to focus on the high-level vision. In ancient Hebrew culture, remembering was not just a mental exercise, it was an active duty. To forget a kindness or a person's contribution was considered a deep ethical failure. For a leader, the long memory is a strategy that treats gratitude as a form of social capital. It is about acknowledging that no leader reaches the top alone, and that the people who help them along the way deserve a seat at the table of success. In modern talent management, people often leave organizations because they feel invisible or like a disposable asset. A leader with a long memory changes this dynamic entirely. By actively tracking and rewarding the contributions of their team, not just during the annual review, but in the small, difficult moments, they build an ironclad sense of loyalty. When employees know their leader truly remembers their sacrifices and their hard work, they develop a level of commitment that money cannot buy. Gratitude becomes the ultimate retention strategy. It creates a culture where people stay not because they have to, but because they are part of a story where every contribution is documented and honored. The ultimate test of a leader is not how well the organization runs while they are in charge, but how well it runs after they are gone. In the Hebrew tradition, the transition from one generation to the next was a central obsession. Whether it was the transition from Moses to Joshua or the lineage of a family trade, the goal was never to create a cult of personality around a single founder. Instead, the focus was on building a system governed by Torah, meaning a set of core principles and instructions that are independent of any one person. Legacy building requires a leader to move from being the hero of the story to being the architect of the system. If an organization collapses when the founder leaves, it wasn't a success, it was a personality project. A true leader builds a shield of leadership by embedding their values into the very fabric of the culture, through clear processes, ethical standards, and the training of successors. They prioritize eternal principles over personal charisma. By doing this, they ensure that the vision outlives the visionary. The final survival rule of leadership is simple. To be truly successful, you must make yourself unnecessary. You win the long-term game when the values you stood for continue to govern and protect the community long after your name has left the door.